Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
And welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. It's where we talk about triumph, overcoming, personal stories, storytelling, and we give hope to each other as well as our listeners that nothing is so bad that you can't get through it because others have been there too. So I'm so happy that you're all here. This community is growing and building, and I'm so proud of that. We're here to help each other. That's what we're here for in this life, right? So I'm just excited that you're here. Make sure that you're subscribing to the podcast so you do get all of our most up-to-date episodes. So I am Maureen Scanlon, a master life coach and self-worth coach, confidence coach, dating coach, and relationship expert, as well as a best-selling author. And I'm so happy that everyone is here today. When you hear my next guest, I love these connections when people come across my feed and I'm like, or my emails, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the one. I got to get her. I love everything about her. I love her aura and I love what she does. I love what she's overcome. We have some very common synchronized experiences. So let me tell you about our next guest, Marysol James. She is a romance writer who has written 30 books today. Did you hear me, listeners? 30, okay? Me and my humble little 3 books. I know the work that goes into writing a book and publishing and marketing. 30 books, just saying. And it is spread over 6 best-selling series. I have to go and read these, with 1 series recorded to audiobooks. She landed in this career utterly by happy accident. I love those little things that happen in our lives. Our path is not always as we think it will be. So she learned the value of deviating from a set path and embracing opportunities outside of the box. She is a Canadian who is now living in England, and in between she lived in Poland and Asia and has traveled extensively, completely by herself with only a backpack. That's a topic we have to cover too. She also has been through an abusive relationship with a narcissist, and it's unfortunately such a common theme with a lot of women and men as well. I don't want to leave our men out. And so she's a romance writer who's single and seeking a real connection. And I want to be her dating coach. I just, I really, I love it. Dating over 40 is my jam because we're so different and we're so much more confident and we know what we want. So we'll talk about that one. So without any further ado, good morning or good afternoon, my love, where you're at, to our podcast, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Maureen. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
I love it. So what we do is we start off here on I Never Knew with our knee story. And the knee story is just, those moments in our life where we really just hit our knees and we said, this isn't working. I am beat down and whatever I've been doing is not giving me the life that I want. So can you think, I know we have many knee stories in our lives, but can you think of the first knee story that really comes to mind that you feel like this is what got me to overcome and really change the trajectory of my path?
Well, there would be a couple. I would say the most recent one was probably the most devastating in terms of grinding me down to the point where there wasn't much of me left. And that would be the narcissistic, abusive ex that I now have. I left him a year ago, but we were in a 6-year relationship. And the last 3 years of it were utterly, utterly hell on earth. And over that 3 years, I would say that I was brought to my knees multiple times over and over. And every time I tried to get up, I just, at some point, you literally can't rise anymore and you kind of stay on your knees.
Yeah.
So it's a miracle that anybody who's been abused to that point is able to leave, because you don't walk, you crawl. And I crawled away from that relationship, 100% destroyed. So I would say that was my personal beaten down to my knees and kept there for a while.
You know what's interesting to me is so many of my beautiful women friends, my intelligent, gorgeous, wonderful, highly intelligent friends, we've been in those relationships, and it has nothing to do with who we are. And this might be controversial. It has everything to do with who they are, that I think stirs up the empath in us, the caring, loving people that we are. We're just with the wrong people that can't receive it well, because they can only satisfy their needs. And mine was same thing. The worst one was a 6 year long as well. The other one, my husband it was domestic violence, but really the one that was psychologically more damaging, that left me like you, crawling out of it. Those are the ones that are so tough to get that self-esteem and self-worth back. And
Yes.
tell me, did you question, after you were crawling out of it, how did you finally just get back who you were? And what was your outlet? Because I know for me, the dogs really were the ones that just kind of gave me the aha moment, where I was able to get out of that, started doing stuff for myself and believing in myself. Do you have any moment where you had this outlet that you started building back who you were?
I would say I'm still working on building back who I was. I left him a year ago, so it actually hasn't been that long if you think about it. A year is an incredibly long time in some ways. When you're in the abusive relationship, a year is a decade. But when you're recovering from an abusive relationship, a year feels like a week in so many ways, because you make progress and then something happens and it throws you back, and it constantly feels like you're restarting, you're sliding back, you have a really good few days and then you have a horrible day in your head, so you feel like you're not advancing. And the other truth is, honestly, Maureen, that I really sincerely fear, and I hope I'm wrong, but I fear that I will never go back to the person I was before him. I fear that in so many ways, the damage is probably mentally permanent. I have some physical damage that's permanent as well, because he wasn't just emotionally and psychologically abusive, he was also physically abusive. But you're quite right, in a way, the physical abuse feels secondary to what was happening in my head. So I would honestly say that I'm still in recovery. I think I will be for a while. I might be forever. I hope not. I would like to go back to the person I was. And I do see glimpses of her every once in a while. I do. I feel really optimistic. I feel really powerful. I feel really happy, at peace, all of that. And I feel like I can do things again, things without worrying about, can I handle it? Am I too stupid? Am I too pathetic? Am I too weak? I just know I can do it. But when you talk about an outlet, it's my writing. It's my writing every time. And it is what I lost in that relationship. He made it impossible for me to do my writing, because, of course, when I was writing, I had independent income, and you can't have that when you're a narcissist. You have to have full control. And that included financial. And so once he completely removed the mask, the person that he was in the beginning, that amazing, amazing person, the person who doesn't actually exist, once he revealed himself And it took a few years for him to fully reveal himself. I was living with him. My son was living with us, and I had lost any financial independence. And we were in lockdown. So I was stuck. I was completely stuck. He had total control and power. So and that was when the abuse really began, like the demoralizing, the devaluing, me feeling completely isolated, and just, I didn't understand what was happening. How did this wonderful man turn into this? Like, what did I do to make him into this person? But then once I saw him, there was a click moment. It was one click moment, and after that, everything changed for me. And that was when I began writing again secretly, because I couldn't write. I couldn't let him know. Right. So I was writing secretly, and that was the outlet that not only gave me back my self-esteem and my voice and my power in a way, it brought financial security to me. And so I was able to leave with my son and support us both. So for me, the outlet is definitely my writing. Definitely.
You're pulling on my life coach heartstrings right now.
Okay.
You are me 14 years ago. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
You know what?
Yeah.
I have so much compassion for where you are. You're right. A year, because of all that happens in those type of relationships, it really is this undoing that takes a lot of time. I still have the narcissist popping in every now and then, somehow getting through social media or, and I've decided not to give it energy, because I just don't care anymore about what he's doing. Their intentions, narcissist intentions, are always to get a rise out of you, to get an emotional reaction. They get they get satisfaction out of that. When they cannot control every aspect of your life, then they're losing control, and that affects their self-esteem. So you taking back your financial control, and ladies and men getting out of relationships like this, I am putting my coach hat on for a moment. Okay. That's the key, right? Is find something small for you, just like Marysol and her secret writing. Whether it's, I remember I was like stashing money away, or I was, connecting with people that I know no one would. He was my narcissist was very interesting. He was the guy that everybody loved. He was like the jokester and, Mr. Friendly and very charismatic, but behind doors, he was just, a mess. And he was also an alcoholic. So, I remember my father, a month before I finally was able to get rid of him, my father had said, "How's Mr. Perfect?" So you can see that everybody else's view of him was so different than what he really was. I love that you said, when that mask came off, boy, you called it a click moment, which I absolutely love. I'm going to be writing, so if you see me look down, I'm writing some of these pertinent things that you said. I love you so much, because you're giving a story to our listeners that says you don't have to be healed in a year. But I, as a coach and a master self-worth coach, I'm going to say to you, you will not be this way forever. You are not damaged. You are not broken. You are none of those things. The only thing you are is in a belief system that was inserted in you for 6 years. And all you have to do is rewire that and replant some new stuff. And that's something that, for me, when I coach, because I had to do that, no one helped me through that, being that voice that I needed. It's just saying to myself every day, and listeners, do this when you're in those moments. Just say, look in the mirror and say, I'm amazing, and no one and nothing can break me. I have good things coming. Nothing meant for me will ever miss me. And just continue to build yourself and reprogram. Remember back in the day, we had tape recorders?
Oh,
the
sure.
the cassette tape recorders.
Yeah.
What we did was when we listened to something or we had a cassette tape and we wanted some new music or we wanted to do something else, we'd push the record button and it would record over what was previously there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to do. When we
Mm-hmm.
coach, it's let's erase what was there and we're going to replace it with something new. We're recording over those tapes that have been playing for 6 years that someone planted in you. So
Mm-hmm.
I love you and I digress. It's just my little life coach heartstrings for you. I just want to hug you so much through the screen because I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Tell
You.
yourself you're proud of you. Getting out of it is the most dangerous when you're getting out of it. It's the most dangerous time, especially when there's physical abuse. And
Mm.
it is the most difficult psychologically. What you said is so pertinent when you said, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to go out and meet someone. I remember questioning myself when I was dating, going, do I trust my judgment?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
hardest thing because you think I was fooled once, maybe twice, maybe three times in my case. I've been fooled. Am I able to filter these people out? Am I able to actually see people for what they are and not get love bombed and gaslit again? The answer is yes. When your self-esteem outweighs what you were going through, outweighs the memories, outweighs the old beliefs, limiting beliefs, that's when you trust your judgment. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a living testament to it. I attracted my husband, who is like the most wonderful, caring, loving human being on the planet. After all those narcissistic damaged relationships, to attract him, it took work, right? It
Mm-hmm.
took work to heal and to say, no, that's not good enough for me. To go from I'm trying to make someone love me to are you worthy of being in my presence mindset took some work. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
where I want you to be. I just said where we're gonna get you. Look at me. I'm like we're gonna coach you. But I love this topic and I love you so much for your vulnerability to be here and talk about that. Now, we talked off air, you had some other challenges,
Mm.
which was some health issues. So tell us how you overcame some health issues.
Well, I've had cancer twice in my life. Once, the first time, I was 9 years old when I was diagnosed.
Oh my
And it was
gosh.
back then it was called Hodgkin's disease, but now it's called Hodgkin's lymphoma. And back then, because this was 19, I was born in 72, so this was 1981 sort of thing, like 80. And back then, Hodgkin's lymphoma was a disease that affected the profile was sort of 30 to 45-year-old white men. That was the demographic. Now Hodgkin's affects all age groups, all across genders, just everybody. Everybody's potentially a victim of it. But back then, I was such a weird case. They had no idea what to do with me, a 9-year-old girl. And my father's father had died of it, and he fell within the demographic. And Hodgkin's skips a generation, and it was predominantly a male disease. So they were looking at my brother, to sort of say, okay, we need to prepare him sort of in his 30s, 40s. So a 9-year-old girl was just completely off the radar. So everybody kind of panicked. They didn't know what to do about it. It was the weirdest thing. And I lived in the hospital for 3 years, and they
Oh,
kind of threw every treatment in the world at me because they didn't know. So I was in the hospital for 3 years, and my dad worked full time, and my mom had my younger sister and my younger brother at home. So I spent a lot of time alone in the hospital with the nurses, the doctors, other children. It was Children's Hospital in Toronto called Sick Kids. Uh, there were teachers there because clearly we had to go to school when we were well enough. So that 3 years was horrible, horrible, horrible. I've had surgeries, chemo, radiation. The damage to my body is permanent, especially from the radiation. But it is the kind of thing that definitely gives you some resilience and a strong sense of mental toughness and independence. It's nobody really wants to be independent when they're 10 years old under these circumstances, but what choice do you have? So that had a huge impact on me. But then the second time that I was diagnosed with cancer, it was just a few years ago, and I was married with two small children, two boys. And that was different because all you can think about as a mother is what happens if I don't survive this? What's going to happen to my husband? What's going to happen to my boys? And that is a whole different level of toughness where on the one hand you're fighting so hard, you're fighting with everything you have, but on the other hand you're trying to prepare everybody for what happens if the worst takes place. So it's this weird strength, optimism. I'm going to do this, mommy's going to be fine, but if she's not, let's talk about all the things we. So it's very confusing for the children because there's a lot of mixed signals, because they're saying to themselves, if mom is going to be fine, why is she talking about she'll always be looking down at me and always be with me? So it's that's a very tough line to walk, I would say. So those are those are the two biggest health issues that I've ever faced.
Wow. I am, excuse me, I am just in awe of you. First, as a child, the helplessness of it, and not having your parents there, your support system, your attachments are to your parents at that age, and such a developing age, 9 to 12. My gosh. But you're
Yeah.
right, the independence part of it, because you had no choice. And I think a lot of things in life we we grow from because we had no other choices, right? And that's
Mhm.
something I would love to give a TED talk on changing the choices versus looking always at the decision. But 3 years in the hospital, I mean, my gosh, at that age to feel so very alone, and you made it, but you made it, and that really does help self-confidence, because you go back to school with other kids and you're like, psh, you have no idea, your problems are not even close to what I've just been through. Now, the last cancer, did you have to go through chemo, surgery, radiation, anything like that?
All of it. Yeah, not radiation this time, but chemo and surgery. And it was just this horrible, it kind of felt like I was in this horrible flashback for a year, especially because I had not repressed exactly, but when you're a child, a lot of, especially when you live in the hospital and every day is exactly like the day before, and then you're so sick and you feel so unwell, so you spend a lot of time horizontal and not fully, in your head. You're not fully aware all the time or conscious. So a lot of it kind of bleeds away into other things. And then when I had this second round, suddenly I remembered stuff that I'd forgotten, which was also really hard because it didn't feel like I had cancer again. It felt like I had had cancer this entire time, that there was no break between when I was a child and this time around. It suddenly felt like I had this all my life, which was something weird that happened in my head. But it felt so overwhelming and it felt so weirdly familiar. I thought, I remember how this feels, and I'd forgotten. So that was not a pleasant discovery at all, at all, at all.
No,
But
my
it is the kind of thing that once you've remembered something like this and you overcome it a second time, you sort of think to yourself, and this is why the narcissistic thing was such a surprise to me, is that I walked away from both of those experiences so mentally and emotionally strong. And yet, in the hands of a narcissist, um, you can be the strongest person. You can have beat cancer twice. You can have traveled the world alone. You can, all of these things that I had behind me that I was so proud of, things that I had accomplished. And he demolished everything in 3 years. that's how quickly a narcissist can just take it all away. And what you were saying about, your girlfriends, women who are strong and accomplished and professional and successful, and they end up in these relationships and they're just wrecked. And one of the things I had to ask myself over this past year when I worked with a therapist and a life coach was, um, how did it happen to me? How did it happen to me? I've got a master's degree. I've traveled the world. I've been to Bangladesh and India by myself. I can do all these things, beaten cancer twice, left a marriage on really good terms with my ex-husband. I've managed all of these mature adult relationships with men. I've never had an abusive boyfriend on any level. And then this guy. And you sort of and I had a successful writing career. I was a best-selling writer before I met him. And you sort of think to yourself, what on earth? And what I came to realize is that there's a certain kind of narcissist that's very attracted to a powerful, successful, independent woman, because I guess there's a few branches of this, but one of them is you make them look good because they've got you, right? The second thing is there is a certain perverse pleasure in taking a woman who is strong and independent and so on and breaking her. A woman who is already weak, dependent, like pathetic, which is how I thought of myself by the end. I was just pathetic. But when you start with that, it doesn't reflect well on him, does it?
Right.
And secondly, there's nothing to be done. She's already kind of a mess. The joy is taking someone like me, who had all this stuff going for her, all these accomplishments, all this strength, and breaking and controlling her. And that is where the real sickness of narcissism happens, in my opinion. This is what I've come to realize over the past year, is he chose me because I was all of these things. If I had been like somebody who was barely scraping by a minimum wage, and I was a single mother of 5, and I had never done anything, and I had no education, I don't think he would have bothered with me. I would have attracted a different kind of not great relationship, probably, but I don't think he would have bothered with me at all.
Oh,
and I'd be curious what you think about that, because I saw you kind of like agree with me.
Yes,
I'm onto something.
You are so onto something. I am certified in narcissistic relationships. I have this bright light on me. I don't. Woo! Look at that.
You look great. Your skin looks amazing. I have to say, yeah. Look at you.
Okay, there we go. I'm trying to make it so that light's not on me. Okay, so you are absolutely correct. And there are covert versus overt. Okay, and so usually the covert is attracted to the powerful, intelligent women, right? Because we are intelligent and we can spot things that don't work for us. We do it in friendships and family. So we're going to identify someone that is trying to get something from us in a deceitful way. So they have to be covert. Love bombing starts off first and foremost. They're going to build us up to break us down. I love that you said the reason that they are attracted to powerful women, because it makes them look good, self-image, self-esteem, that's their biggest issue, is they have such low self-esteem. Second, this is it. If we talk about nothing else about narcissism, it is power and control. So his win is, I took this woman who had everything, and now she's reliant on everything on me. For me. So I am the powerful one. I am the one that calls the shots. Therefore, my sense, which is what they're trying to do, this grandeur sense of self that they need because they can't fulfill it inside because they have such a low self-esteem, is fulfilled by breaking us down. Sort of that Freud and Schaden, getting pleasure out of somebody else's misery. It's a very common thing. And there's 9 characteristics of a narcissist. So we're going to, for all intents and purposes right now, we're just going to say narcissistic qualities, because we can't diagnose him with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. You probably could relate to however many characteristics. They need to have 5 of the 9 characteristics to be designated or diagnosed as a narcissistic personality disorder. So we're just going to
Mm-hmm.
say narcissistic qualities. A lot of us have it. I mean, I might have one quality, I might every now and
Well,
then.
it's healthy to have some narcissistic qualities because it is about self-esteem to a certain degree, having some belief in yourself, thinking, I'm better than this situation, I'm leaving it. What's wrong with
Yes.
that? So yes, we all
Yes.
have some, definitely.
It
I,
helps
I
with boundary setting and
oh,
boundary
for sure.
keeping. We need
Yeah.
to have that, like you said, that building of I cannot let you do this to me, and you might hate me for this, but again, I had to come to this realization of what my part was in this relationship. Well, what my
Sure.
part was in the relationship, instead of, and your words were, why did this happen to me, you're going to flip that to, why did I allow this?
Yes. That's
That
what I've spent the past year
changes.
doing. Yes. Why, what my therapist actually says to me is, why do you think you accepted that behavior? Why do you think in your mind somehow something that was so unacceptable and not okay became okay? What happened in your head to make that happen? And that's a hard question. And I think that's why healing or recovering from narcissistic abuse, the head stuff and the emotional stuff, is the hard stuff, because you do have to say to yourself, the girl that I was 10 years ago would have kicked his butt to the curb without a second thought. But 3 years into the relationship, I thought he was I thought he was so great. Like he did such a good job over those 3 years. And when he started to change and he started to flip and he started to reveal who he really was, I couldn't believe it. It made no sense. And I think that's where, if I ever go into another relationship and he starts to behave this way, I'll be out. Because the second you're confused about who are they really, like the second you start to think to yourself, who's the real guy, you're not in a great relationship. And he might be going through a bad time. His father might have just died. There might be something, right? This person, and I shouldn't keep saying he, I'm saying he because of my relationship. But a narcissist, people get self-absorbed and people have hard things happen to them and they behave badly. And all of that can be forgiven, not necessarily tolerated. If it's bad for you, you still have to leave, but at least you can say, this person was very close to their father died, they're in a tailspin, I can't help them, so I have to protect myself. That's one conversation. When it's somebody who exhibits the same behaviors over and over and over, and it becomes a pattern, and you realize that this is actually who they are. It doesn't matter if things are going well for them, if things are going badly for them. It doesn't matter if you support them in something or you don't support them in something. It doesn't matter if their parents are healthy or their parents are ill. Nothing matters about their circumstances. Those same patterns of destructive, narcissistic, controlling, manipulative behaviors exist no matter what's happening around them. And that is when you sort of say to yourself, this isn't just a weird thing that's throwing them off. This is actually who they are. And I had never come across a narcissist. I had no idea really what it meant. Not until this guy. So part of my problem was I was utterly, utterly naive and inexperienced and unprepared. I think that if there's the next relationship and I see these patterns, I'll be out of there so fast. But he took me by surprise. I had had very, very healthy relationships with men before him. Like I said, even my ex-husband and I are still great friends. So I was able to my ex-boyfriends and I are still friends. So I was able to leave relationships that weren't serving me or him in a healthy, positive, productive, loving way. So I was completely a lamb to the slaughter.
You know what though? That's
Which didn't
really
help matters.
Well, and that's exactly it, is asking for these experiences. We ask for new experiences. Well, you never had a bad experience with a relationship, so you
No.
needed that knowledge. And I'm going to give you some hope, because through my healing journey, getting away, and I mean, I had cancer twice when I was in that relationship. I was down to
Wow.
95 pounds. I was walking with a cane at 38 years old because my arthritis in my back was so bad. I had
Oh,
asthma. I had, you name it. It just, all that overspill into physical. And so
no.
I can give you hope here, because when I got out of it, I was feeling just like, wow, I don't trust myself. It happened again. What's wrong with me? I didn't see the red flags. I made excuses. That's a very common one, ladies. Do not make an excuse for anyone. It is what it is. When you see what they're doing, I don't care if it's your first date and they're rude to the wait staff, it's a
Mm,
sign. Get out. When I
mhm.
would start dating afterwards, and I think listeners, you've heard this, some of you, I went out on a date and I came home and my best friend had said, well, how was that date? And I was so excited. I was like, it was wonderful. He's a narcissist. And she went, wait, what? And I said, no, you don't understand. I saw it. I saw it immediately.
Oh,
So
no.
when I say to you, you're going to see it, you will, because you're going to heal yourself to that point where it cannot be denied. It cannot be hidden from you. It will
Mm,
be upfront. Those red flags will be glaring, and you'll be able to
yeah.
say, nope, not today. Not today. I'm
Mm,
walking. And so that's really, really key. I want to ask you,
yeah.
how do you think your experience, and whether good experience in relationships or this last one that was so toxic and painful, how do you think it transfers over to your romance novels? How has it helped you?
Well, it's interesting because since entering that narcissistic relationship, in 6 years, I published one book. That's the thing. I've written 30 books, but only one of them was published in that 6 years because, like I said, it it he kind of chipped away at my ability to work independently. And he had me working for his company. And of course, I thought, of course, I'll help you with your company because you're starting your own business and you need some support. And I'm happy to do it. You know, I love you. We're in this together. This is money that will come into the household and keep a roof over all of our heads, including my son. And so then it just kind of gradually went from help with a bit of this to maybe a day a week to 3 days a week to all of the days of the week to you can't do any writing because the company really needs you. And sort of before, the thing about a narcissist is it's so slow. I mean, if they rip off the mask all in one go, you'd be out of there. But
Yep.
it's so gradual, so gradual.
They're masters of grooming. They really,
Manipulation.
yeah, they
Yeah, they're
know
very
how slow
patient.
to move.
They're very
Yeah,
patient.
it's a long game for
So,
them.
so I would honestly say that before him, my writing was, uh, I mean, I loved my writing because it was a way for me to examine sort of relationships and complications and some social things and um, trauma and bringing it into a relationship and how the right relationship can not heal your trauma but support you through it. You know, the right person will see you past, they don't see the trauma, they see you beyond it. And that's how I wrote all my books. And it's interesting because in the whole 6 years I was with him, I wrote one book and it was probably my weakest book. I mean, I look at it now and it's the one that it sounds the least like me in every way because I was fighting tooth and nail to get it done. And it's something I feel like I should rewrite. But I started another book and I tried so hard to get this book written. Like I worked really hard at it and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't get the time. And even when I stole the time somehow, you know, my headspace was so bad that the whole idea of writing about a healthy, loving, supportive, romantic relationship, I was like thinking to myself, I don't even know what that looks like anymore. I don't, Do they exist anymore? Is it all fictional? And so I just couldn't do it. But since leaving him a year ago, I've been able to write it, and it's being published next month on August 12th. And it is the book that I will be the most proud of, because it's the book that I didn't think I would ever be able to finish, because I was so just destroyed by him that I didn't have the confidence to publish something and put my name on it and put it out there in the world. But I've done it this past year. And it's been slow because I've had other work, I've taken other jobs, I've had to support myself and my son as a single mother. But I'm really excited that I can publish it next month. So that's something that I really need to do. I really need to do that. And how this relationship will have informed this most recent book, all I think it's done, to be honest with you, is bring me back to the type of writing I did before. The confidence, the strength, the strong dialogue, the strong plot, the strong character development. It's all back. And that actually makes me think about what I said to you earlier about, will I get myself back after this relationship? If my writing is any indication, I think I will, because as a writer, I feel that I have returned to my previous strength. So has it changed my writing? I don't think so. It's brought me back to my writing. And I'm very pleased about that. I'm very grateful that he didn't take it permanently. Because for a while there, I thought he did. I thought I'd lost it.
Oh, this is such a milestone moment for you. And these are the things that I absolutely love when I see this movement forward of resilience and overcoming. It's like whatever steps we take, they're baby steps. And we need to say to ourselves, wow, I got this. I did this. I took this step forward. And I'm just so happy for you. And it's great to have that reflection too, where you read that one book, how filtered you were, how to be a writer, your heart, soul, mind have to be in that book. And like you said, he damaged and stole things. He didn't. You gave it to him, and you now have taken back your power and said, oh, no, 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 no. I'm through that point where someone shadowed and clouded who I really am. And this is who I really am. And this is what I'm proud of. I just love that. Now, I have to say this, and my listeners know this. I think I've mentioned this. I am a nonfiction writer. So I have 2 nonfiction books and I have a children's book. I think it's easy to write a nonfiction book. I, do the life coaching lessons and integrate my story. I've always said, my husband said I need to write a fiction. And I always say I think it takes so much imagination and skill to come up with something out of nothing and to create this beautiful story that keeps the reader wanting more. So I want to say this, and I want to ask you, when it comes to romance novels, which I absolutely love to read,
okay.
What's the misconception that people have about romance readers and romance writers?
Okay. Buckle up. Brace yourself for this one, because this is one of my pet peeves. Huge one. Oh God. Okay. Deep breath, center yourself, answer the question nicely. Let me just go back a bit before I respond to that question. First, when I first became a romance writer, I joined Amazon, and they have this forum there for authors. And every author who's ever self-published on Amazon is welcome to join the forum. And there was this strong anti-romance movement in the forum that nobody admitted that they were a romance writer, because then you were just snowballed under the negative comments, and that's not real writing, and there's no research, and your readers are stupid. Like it was horrible, horrible. And I decided I'd had enough of that. And I started just openly saying that I was a romance writer. I'd written 6 books, 10 books, 12 books, whatever I had done. And I started including links to my author's page and to my books and so on. And most people then kind of fell off. But there were a couple who insisted on belittling me, denigrating me, and worse, my readers, because clearly anybody who loves romance is totally brain dead. They can't handle a real book, right? They don't have the mental capacity of it. So that's something I came across very, very early in my writing. And it's something that is pervasive. And I don't know exactly where it comes from. I think it's sort of this whole idea that, first of all, it's women predominantly who will read the romance. And so if it's for women, for some people, that automatically makes it less than. If it's something that women prefer or are the majority of the people who enjoy it, if it's a woman thing, it's less than. For example, women professions with largely the majority of the people working them are women, less than. And it's been that way for as long as I've been alive. I'm 52. So I remember when teaching, nursing, all these things were considered less than because it was women.
Yeah.
And I think that because romance is still predominantly written by women, for women. Did you hear that? So I feel that this is kind of the modern equivalent of when women were made fun of for loving soap operas on television. I think that romance novels are in that same genre. It's for women, it's fluffy, it's light, it's stupid. However, I never watched soap operas, but my grandmother did. And there were some convoluted plots. And it was complicated family dynamics. And okay, there was maybe some gratuitous nonsense sex, okay? But on the other hand, they talked about alcoholism. They talked about women trying to break the glass ceiling in a company they would own. They talked about infidelity. They talked about abuse. I mean, soap operas tackled some really hard stuff. And I think that romance gets such a bad rap because it is considered, oh, it's fluffy and stupid. Well, not really. Especially the way that I write it, where my characters, a lot of them have experienced really severe trauma and they are trying to be brave and go into a new relationship. Well, that's not light and fluffy at all, is it?
No.
And a lot of my characters, one of my characters has cancer. So she's trying to balance a relationship and her health. Another character, her mother is very sick and she has to come up with a whole lot of money for a kidney transplant. A lot of my male characters and a few female characters are suffering from PTSD after being in a war zone and returning home and trying to have a healthy relationship with friends, family, and a woman when they're dealing with, some of them have lost limbs, a lot of them have lost friends, a lot of them are mentally struggling to cope with life back in the real world, as they call it. And there's nothing light and fluffy about any of that. And my predominantly female readers respond to all of these things. They love the love story, they love the romance, but they also love the fact that these are real people dealing with real things they can actually relate to. And I know it's real because I've actually had readers email me and say, I bought your most recent book. It was beautifully written. It was a great story, but I really didn't like it because my mother died of cancer and your female character had cancer and it was too close. It was too real. So I love your book and thank you for writing it, but I just didn't enjoy this one. And I always think totally understandable. One of my female characters had a double mastectomy and then she was struggling with her body image. And I had emails from readers saying, thank you so much for writing a love story where she feels female and sexy and this man brings that out in her, but I had a double mastectomy and I just can't imagine it ever happening for me. So I hope it does. So I know I'm writing real things because I get very real reactions. And just speaking about leaving this abusive relationship, when I told my readers what had been going on, why I had disappeared for all these years and why I wasn't publishing anymore, and I told them, I said, this is what happened. I didn't go into too much detail. The responses I got from people saying, I also left an abusive relationship. My mother is a narcissist. Again, so real. So I would say that something that really annoys me when people think about romance readers is how stupid they are and how out of touch with the real world they are. Nonsense. But also as a romance writer, the whole idea that what I write doesn't count, doesn't matter, doesn't take any work, doesn't take any skill. Again, nonsense. I work really hard and I am a good writer, and I've seen really bad romance. I know they exist out there. I get it. My books aren't that. My books are really well written and I take a lot of pride in them. So I really wish people would stop being down on romance readers and writers. It's manifestly unfair. And that's the end of my rant.
I love your rant. I love your rant.
Thank
And
you.
I agree 1,000,000% with it because, again, as a nonfiction author, I'm telling you the skill involved in keeping the attention of the readers. And what I love is what everything you're talking about. It's like what we do here on the podcast. We're talking about real things. It's the relatability in your story, but also your story is a way for us to kind of leave our own reality and kind of go along this journey with your characters. If that doesn't take skill, I don't know what does. What's the difference between that and a screenwriter, right? Or,
None.
a TV series writer? This is the same thing. You have to find a way to bring in your readers, keep them interested, keep them wanting more of what you do. So I say poo-poo on anyone who does not give you credit and respect for what you do. And any art, I think, deserves respect, whether you are a writer or a painter or a singer or a dancer, or I don't care what it is. We have to respect each other's talents, and that is your talent. I love it so much. I cannot wait now to read your books. First of all,
Well,
I'm so excited.
sorry, I just wanted to say that something else that I think you were talking about, the creativity and keeping people engaged, is I write series. So I don't just write a standalone book. I have 2 series of 5 books, and I have 2 series of 8 books, and then I have 1 series that I'm writing the 4th book, and then I have another series with 1 book. It all adds up to 30 books. And those 8-book series or those 5-book series, in the first book, you tend to meet most of all of the characters. So my job is to, when I write the first book, I actually have the whole series kind of planned out, because I have to introduce everybody. I have to set the dynamics. I have to set the setting, and then you start a thread and you have to keep it consistent throughout all 8 books or 5 books or whatever it is. And so you meet one, like in Dangerous Curves, you meet Sarah and Jax, and you meet Sarah's mother, you meet her brother, and then you meet all of Jax's friends, and then you meet people who work at the bar, and then you meet the customers, and so on. And one guy has a sort of special ops group, so you meet all of his people, his 10 special ops people. They'll get their own spin-off series eventually, but they've all been introduced. So it's really important as a writer to introduce every character strong, because at some point I'm going to need them to have a whole book to themselves. And it has to make sense with who I have introduced them as. And something else I love to do is I love my characters to move between the series. So for example, King is a major character in Dangerous Curves. He's the one who owns a garage, but he also runs the Black Ops special group with this group of 10 men and women. And in my other books, they need his services, and they all know him. He's very known in Colorado. So every once in a while, somebody will say, okay, you know who we need to help us with this horrible problem? Let's get King. So King appears in a different series. And that's really important, because it's like a gigantic spider web. And it's how I picture it in my mind, a gigantic spider web of stories and relationships. And sometimes I'll just drop somebody in for no reason. They meet somebody for dinner, and it's a couple from another series who have their own book, but they know this person through some weird workshop, and now they're going for dinner. And my readers go, oh my God, it was Mitch and Rita. They showed up for dinner. Oh, I haven't seen them since 3 of the Fighting for Love. It was nice to see them again. And that's fun. But again, it requires the ability as a writer to keep all the spiderweb threads really clear and defined. And it's also about timelines. where I'll be writing a series and there's the death of this horrible kingpin, sex trafficking, horrible guy who has touched pretty much every series. So I have to keep the timeline straight as well.
Wow.
So it's a lot. So this whole thing where there's no research and there's no planning in romance writing.
Yeah, I disagree.
I beg to differ.
I completely agree. Yeah, keeping it all straight. It just, I'm a true crime enthusiast, and all I can think of is like the murder board, where they have the victim and then all the strings going
all
to
the strings.
all the possible. That's what I was thinking.
I have that over 30 books.
Yeah.
And in every book, there's a series of relationships, like dozens of relationships, right?
How
Besides
fun.
the main one, there's the friendships and there's the family and there's the this and there's that. And then there's people who wander in and out. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I love it because when I love a book, I am always disappointed when it's over. So to know that you've got all of these series and I know that, I got another one to look forward to and another one. That is really exciting. So listeners, we have to wrap it up here, but I do want to ask you, Marysol, where do we find your books, websites, all of that stuff so our readers can go find your books?
Okay. The best place is my website, which is marysoljames.com. And on it, you've got all of my books. If you click on the drop-down menu on book series, all 6 series show up. And if you click on a series, all of the books appear. I'm exclusive to Amazon, just because romance does very well on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm on Kindle Unlimited. So any of your listeners who have that KU, go and get all my books for 99 cents or whatever it is you pay for. Also on my website, there's my social media. And you can also sign up for my newsletter where I run contests, I give sneak peeks, I give sort of news about what I'm doing. And that's probably the best place to go and just find it's a one-stop shop. It's the best place to find me. And I'm thinking about starting a shop of some Marysol James merch. And I'm probably going to start putting links to any podcasts or anything that I do to, help you guys as well, get you guys out there a little bit more.
Love it.
So I think I'll be expanding my website over the next month or so as well.
I love it. Marketing genius and expert writer. I love you to pieces. Well, thank you for your story, your vulnerability, your creativity, your talent, your beautiful light that you're shining in this world. I'm so happy that you honored us today and our listeners today, because I just think you're so wonderful. And I know 1,000,000% who you are has never changed. What you do about it is the only thing that changes, and you're going to press that record button. You're going to record over all of that garbage that taught you the lessons, and you'll have the gratitude for it so you can be a better you. And I'm just so proud of you, and you should be too. So hang in with me real quick. And
let me just say thank you to you, because you have been so just gorgeous inside and out and so supportive. And there is something about hearing somebody who's been through something and come out the other side so much stronger. So I will look to you as an example, a beacon to follow, definitely. So I very much appreciate all of your amazingly strong, supportive, empowering words. So thank you.
I love you for that. Thank you so much. My whole mantra is the starfish story. If you're familiar with the starfish story.
I don't think I am.
So there's a little boy who's walking along the beach, and there's thousands of starfish lying on the beach, and the sun is out, and they're going to dry up. And when they dry up, they die. And so this little boy's walking along the beach, throwing these in the ocean. And an old man walks up to him and said, "Little boy, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm throwing them back in the ocean so they don't die." And the old man said, "Well, there's thousands of them. You're not going to make a difference." And he leans down and he throws one in the ocean, and he looks at the old man and he says, "But it made a difference to that one." Yeah. And so that is my life story, my mantra, my passion. Everything that I do for coaching, podcasting, writing is the starfish story, because I know one changed heart, one healed heart, healed soul, healed mind, new belief system is the ripple that carries out to millions. We'll touch millions of people in our lives and we won't even know it, because it's like cells that multiply. And so I love you for those words because it's so validating that it mattered to you. And that's all I care about. As well as you listeners, I do care about you too. So I would love your feedback and your comments, and let me know what you think about my lovely Miss Marysol, because I just love everything about her. And you got to go get her books. So I'm so excited about her books, you guys. Series, if you're really, you want to get sort of out of reality for a while and follow all these interesting characters that she's created, and the spider web of meeting them throughout all of the books, you've got to go get those. And of course, my books are on Amazon as well. Mine are nonfiction and very similar to some of the coaching tips that I give here, as well as the ones on Facebook and Instagram. And that is, my dog is more enlightened than I am. And my dog is my relationship coach, which talks about my healing from my narcissistic relationship.
I think that's so great. I love that. I'm going to have to pick up your book to help me with my healing journey,
100%. And it'll help you with the new dating and the new relationships and how to just recognize those types of behaviors. So I mean, takes one to know one. So I always think, you know what? You don't go to a marriage counselor who hasn't been married. So it's kind of the same thing. You don't read a book about someone who hasn't been damaged. So I think it's really key to helping people. And then, of course, there's my children's book, which teaches mindfulness and emotions are good. My dog Bexley is just like me. And that one's dedicated to my baby granddaughter, Carter, who just turned 1 today.
Carter. Oh, that's amazing.
It's her birthday. Grandma. Her birthday and her daddy's birthday. She was born on her daddy's birthday, which is incredible. So my son-in-law, my daughter, her husband and her daughter share the same birthday. So that's what my dog Bexley is just like me. That's my grand dog and my granddaughter, dedicated to them. It is actually her favorite book, and she's 1, guys, so she can not read, but she always pulls it down for daddy to read to her at bedtime, which is really fun. And then, of course, you all know about my boutique, and that is mydogiseverything.net, and those are all safety products, apparel, healthy treats, paw bombs, and organic shampoos for your puppies, because y'all know how much I love the puppies. My Texas just came out, y'all. I'm here. I'm here in Austin, and my Texas just came out. So mydogiseverything.net, and we just added a bunch of new products, and we're doing lots of events around Austin. So if you're in the Austin area, come out and see us. We're doing Georgetown this weekend. We do pop-up shops all over. So I love you all for being here. Find me at lifecoachmaureen.com. You'll see my books, you'll see my coaching, you'll see my speaking, all that fun stuff. So lifecoachmaureen.com. And let me know. Sign up for a free discovery call. See if coaching is for you. See if you want to get into some dating coaching. If you're having relationship issues, I help with that as well. So I do anything and everything, starting small businesses. I've helped quite a few of my clients start small businesses because I love my entrepreneur small businesses. So I love you all for being here. Until next week, take care of you, take care of each other. Most of all, please take care of my furry babies, and make sure that you adopt and do not shop. Please go to the shelters and go get you a forever friend. They will love you unconditionally, where you don't need a relationship at all. So we know that there are no narcissistic pets out there. So that's a guarantee of a very successful, healthy relationship. So I love you all. Until next week. Mwah.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.